bloody cuts me off at 10 minutes. Anyhow, the science of these laws is called moral philosophy. Right? So, right, what we have so far, right, is a conception of human nature, a rather dark picture of what, if left to our own devices, we would be up to with the state of nature, an analysis of that state of nature that tells us it's in nobody's best interest, and basically these laws of nature which and contracts which Hobbes calls the convenient articles of peace. Right? So we've got basically all the tools that we need to construct peace for ourselves almost already present. Right? But we still don't have a situation in which it makes sense to attempt to attain peace. Right? Because I can't trust you and you can't trust me. Right? Now, in chapter 16, what Hobbes does is lays out a really weird definition of person. And actually, if I can find my book here, this is still the same battered and beaten copy of Hobbes' Leviathan that I first read when I was an undergraduate student. And I can show you, right in my margin, right by the definition of person there it is the word odd. It's an odd definition for person, right? It was just the strangest thing I had ever read the first time I read this. Right? He defines a person right at the beginning of chapter 16. A person is he whose words or actions are considered either as his own or as representing the words or actions of another man, or of any other thing to whom they are attributed, whether truly or by fiction. Right? So a person is an act of representation, right, by Hobbes' account. A natural person is someone whose words or actions are represented themselves. Right? So when I'm in my relationship or hanging around with my friends, and somebody says, "Hey, Grant, what do you think?" And I answer, "Oh, well, what I think is I'm representing myself and therefore a natural person." But in this context, when we're virtually meeting like this, right, my words and my actions represent Thomas Hobbes. Right? So, in a sense, Thomas Hobbes is the one I am personating. He's the one I am representing. Right? So, when we represent ourselves, in a sense, what we do is we take ownership of that which we're representing, either of ourselves or of somebody else. Right? So when I speak up for Thomas Hobbes, what I'm doing is I am speaking with Thomas Hobbes' authority. And authority signifies ownership. Right? Authority is when one has the right to do an action, including the establishment of covenants. But it's important to note here that authority can and is frequently transferred. That's weird, isn't it? Right? Well, for example, if I were buying a parcel of land in Mexico, I could authorize my lawyer to negotiate a price for me and even enter into an agreement for the purchase of that land. Right? That lawyer wouldn't be representing himself, he would be representing me, or she, for that matter. Right? So, right, what I do when I authorize a lawyer, right, is I give them my person, right? I give them the authority to represent me, right? And when someone acts with authority, representing the will of another, to make a covenant or to make a contract, it binds the owner of that authority. However, it does not bind the actor. Right? That's weird. Well, think of it this way. That lawyer that I just theoretically authorized to buy land for me in Mexico enters into the agreement, signs the papers, etc., etc. Right? The deal goes through, who's on the hook for the cash for the land? Is it the lawyer? No, it's me. Right? I'm on the hook for that money. Right? Because I authorized the lawyer. The lawyer is personating me, speaking with my authority, entering into agreements on my behalf. So I'm on the hook, not the person who is my representative. Right? Now, Hobbes makes a couple of points here. Inanimate objects, like this book, or this piece of paper, or the computer I'm recording this on right now, well, they can only be represented, they can't own themselves, right? They can only be owned and therefore personated or spoken for in the civil state. Irrational people, right? And he uses the example of children, madmen, and fools, may be personated by guardians, but themselves cannot be actors. Why not? Because they don't know what they're doing, right? They're not rational. Right? They're not fully rational in the case of a child. They're not rational, period, in the case of a madman or a fool. Right? So people of this sort become wards or are taken care of by guardians who enter into agreements for them, but they themselves, without a comprehension of what they're doing, cannot be expected to live up to their end of the bargain. Right? It's just like dogs, frankly. That sounds dismissive, but it's Hobbes' position. And importantly in this chapter, a multitude of people are made one person when they are by that one person represented. In such a case, everyone is the author of the actions of the one. Now, what I want to point out to you, right, you're probably wondering when we get to the Leviathan, right? When we get to what you probably looked up as a big scary sea monster. What I want you to do is take a very close look at the guy on the cover of your book. Big scary looking guy, mullet, crown, sword in one hand, scepter in the other, and he's made up of what? Lots of tiny, tiny people. Right? This is the state that Hobbes is trying to set up here. Right? A situation in which a multitude of people are made one person when they are by that one person represented. In which case the actions of the one are authorized by the whole. Right? This is what we do when we elect a representative to represent us in a government. Right? This is what you would do if you as a class came together and decided you didn't like me and wanted me to change one of my policies. You would discuss it amongst yourselves, right? And send one person as your representative to speak with the authority. This is what we do when we sign petitions. We give our name and our authority over to the message that the people with the petition are trying to get across to those in charge, right? So, authority is commonly tossed around. Our person is bound up with our authority. Right? So what Hobbes is trying to do is create an artificial person, right, out of transferred authority with us all. And what Hobbes, well, he's not even trying to do this. We've done it insofar as we've had governments. We've done it insofar as we've come together into societies. This is what we do as people. Right? This is what a government is. So at this point, the purpose of this book becomes quite clear. Right? This is how Hobbes intends to do sort of a natural science of politics. Right? This is what a government is. Right? So in chapter 17, what he's going to start doing is talking about the causes, the generation, and the definition of what we call a commonwealth. Right? This is what a government is, and this is how we wind up getting one. Right? Now, ultimately, we can already see that the final cause of a commonwealth or a government is that we just don't want to be in the state of nature anymore. Right? So that's fairly simple, but there are a number of things to consider.